Hi everyone, it's Vicky. Ever since I was introduced to K-pop and especially to Blackpink and EXO, I became really interested in South Korea. And of course, as a regular traveler, I added South Korea on the top of my travel list. But I'm limiting my travel these days, as many of us do, and I postponed my visit to South Korea for 2021. I'm looking forward to this trip. But in the meantime, I decided I need to learn something more about South Korea as a country, about the culture, the habits. And a friend of mine suggested that I must watch a video called, let me check how it was called again, 12 Strange Things in South Korea That Surprise an Inexperienced Traveler. Okay, I do consider myself as a quite experienced traveler, but who knows, I might be surprised. And I really cannot wait to check out this video. But before we continue, guys, I'd like to ask you if there's any false information in this video, or if I misunderstand something, please drop me a message in the comment section below. And of course, if there's anything else you can think of and you know about South Korea and you want to share it with me, drop me a line. I'd like to hear from you. Let's check out the video. Starting, let's see what we're gonna learn today.
Hey, you heading to South Korea for your next vacation?
Yes, I am.
Well, before you fill your belly with kimchi and then hit up a BTS concert, you'll need to get acquainted with some South Korean no-nos first. From slightly bizarre cultural faux pas to downright illegal bans. You'll want to know this.
I guess so.
Starting with number 1.
Let's see.
Don't tip at restaurants.
Okay.
Even if the service was incredible, and chances are it will be, fight the urge to leave a tip, especially if you're from a country where that's the norm, like the US, for instance. Restaurant and cafe employees get paid really well, so tipping is seen as an incredibly rude gesture and a jab at their dignity. Number 2. Don't play with chopsticks.
Before we continue with number 2, guys, I'd like to comment on this. I'm quite surprised, being honest, that you're not expected to tip at restaurants. Because I think in Europe, US, and most of the countries around the world, tipping is the norm, basically. And if you do not tip or you don't tip enough, it's considered rather rude or offensive. And I'm quite intrigued that in South Korea that's the opposite. But at the same time, I'm really happy to hear that people get paid really well in hospitality industry because these jobs are rather demanding. And I do feel that should be the case in most countries, and I kind of like the fact that you're not supposed to tip since they get paid enough and they're not depending on the tip to survive. And unfortunately, especially in Europe, if you don't tip enough, people won't be able to meet the ends because their salaries are rather low in the hospitality sector. But yeah, that's a good warning. Actually, that's a good warning because if I travel to South Korea, I wouldn't want to offend anyone by tipping him. Right? So that's good to know. Is that the reality, guys? Please let me know if that's true. Let's see number 2. Don't play with chopsticks. Okay?
There are several taboos that revolve around chopsticks in Korean culture. For example, if you mistakenly poke a hole in your food with chopsticks, then the host or chef might consider it an insult to their cooking skills. Holding the sticks vertically and sticking them vertically into rice are associated with death in South Korea because it resembles the incense sticks stuck in the sand at funerals. Who would have known? Number 3. Don't leave.
Wait. What if I'm not skilled in using chopsticks? Because I really don't feel comfortable using chopsticks. I have tried a few times when I go to Chinese restaurants here back home, but I still struggle eating with sticks, especially eating rice. And since I wouldn't want to mess up with eating with sticks, would I have the possibility to request a fork in a restaurant, or would this be considered offensive? Please let me know your thoughts, because I really don't want to be in trouble using the chopsticks in a wrong way, which could actually happen. Yeah, or maybe the only option for me would be to order food to go. That's interesting.
Food on your plate.
Don't leave food on
Now,
your
this one
plate.
seems pretty logical for most Americans. I can still hear my mom threatening me to clean my plate or I won't get dessert.
Yeah.
But if you're from,
Not only
say,
mom, but
China,
my
you'll
grandma
be
used
shocked
to
to
do
hear
that.
that you shouldn't leave a little bit of food on your plate to show that you're stuffed full of the host's delicious meal.
Okay.
If you're going to East Asia, don't confuse Chinese and Korean table manners. When visiting someone's home in South Korea,
Quite different.
it's impolite to refuse refreshments, and even
Manners
more
between
offensive
China
if
and
you
South
don't
Korea, I
finish
guess.
what's been served. In cafes and restaurants, the staff might also reprimand you for leaving food on your plate. Number 4. Stay away.
I feel like I wouldn't have troubles with the number 3, leaving food on my plate. I usually don't. And I'm certain that South Korean food is rather tasty and delicious. I'm looking forward to explore and to visit South Korea. I really love meeting new cultures, and especially I love the food tourism. So I think that won't be a problem for me. Number 4.
Away from the number 4.
Stay away from number 4.
You might feel uneasy about the number 13,
Yeah,
but a
13
lot
is
of countries
special.
in East Asia have the same attitude, only with the number 4. And that includes South Korea.
Okay.
Some combinations of 4s are more feared than others, and numbers with multiple occurrences of the dreaded
Interesting.
digit are even worse.
Why 4?
This superstition comes down to
Why?
the fact that, in Korean, the word for the number sounds similar to the words for decease and died. Well, now I can understand where they're coming from. You'll even see this phobia in action when you walk into an elevator or a public building. There, floor number 4 and room number 4 are almost always left out. You might see the 4th floor labeled F in an elevator
Even
instead.
labeled F?
Apartment numbers containing multiple occurrences of 4, such as 404, are avoided to the extent that the value of such a property can be negatively affected. Wow. Number 5.
Number 4? Seriously? That is kind of strange, but okay, I understand that the meaning behind the word for 4, or what it sounds like in Korean, it's a bit scary, and maybe that's why people are avoiding the 4, but to that extent, yeah, for most Europeans or people around the world, number 13 is considered as the unlucky number or the one that brings you bad luck. But I don't think people avoid apartments or floors with the number 13 that much, because I think some people consider 13 as their lucky number actually, and some of them are claiming it to be a bad number, but for number 4, I've never heard that. For example, my sister's birthday is on the 4th of April and she was born in 1984. Does that mean that if she invites people on her birthday, nobody would go? Nobody would attend it because it's on the 4th of April? I'm just curious, guys. Let me know to what extent South Koreans are superstitious, because that's really interesting.
Don't give gifts to your teacher.
Number 5, don't give gifts to
The
your
age-old
teacher.
tradition of giving gifts to teachers for
Right.
Teachers' Day on May 15th was made illegal in South Korea back in September of 2016. The law
Illegal.
prohibits teachers from receiving gifts from students or their parents. It does, however, allow paper carnations to be given by one student representative on behalf of the whole class or to teachers who don't teach them anymore. So, if you're a student in South Korea or
Okay.
you plan on taking some classes there, be warned. Breaking this law could mean a fine of up to $25,000 or even prison time.
Prison?
And if you do give or receive anything,
Okay.
be it a gift or
That's
food
a
at the
bit
dinner
too much,
table,
I think.
always use both hands to show respect.
Both hands. Okay.
Number 6.
Okay, guys, I do understand that giving presents to a teacher from his current students is not acceptable, and I feel like that's kind of the understanding for most countries, although I think they don't enforce it with a law to forbid it. But I kind of like that perception of giving gifts to teachers, because I feel like if individual students are giving presents to their teachers, they could build a special connection or a closer connection. And sometimes I think teachers could privilege some of the students before others, and that that wouldn't be nice, and I feel like that's the reason behind it, and I really like the idea. Okay, the fine is a bit too high, I would say, especially if you're not warned in advance and if you're a foreigner. I just wonder, are there exceptions to these rules, guys? If you're an expat who moved there just like a month or a few weeks before, and then you send your kid to school, would you be fined if you give a small present to the teacher because you simply didn't know it was not allowed? Let me know. I'm really curious to clarify that. Let's see number 6.
Don't let your tattoos show.
Your tattoo show. Well,
Many East Asian countries don't
kinda
like tattoos,
understandable.
and they've even managed to encode this into their laws. In South Korea, it's illegal for tattoo artists to practice their work, and only licensed medical doctors are legally allowed to ink people.
okay.
But a lot of locals will tell you that this law isn't enforced too heavily, and you can get a tattoo pretty easily. Still, people with tattoos are treated differently, so you may want to
see.
cover up yours if you plan a trip. That's especially the case if you're wanting to work or do business in Korea.
Makes
It's
sense.
best to keep the tats under wraps.
Mhm.
Number 7.
I think it's quite common for many countries to kind of dislike tattoos, especially being shown at cases when it's not appropriate. Of course, when you're doing business or you're going to a business meeting, it's good to be warned so you don't get in trouble because you have your tattoos shown. But I think that's the case for many countries. Let's see, number 7. Sounds interesting.
Don't wear plunging
Don't
necklines.
wear plunging necklines?
Most people in the West are pretty relaxed about clothing, especially Americans.
Yeah.
You do you and wear what
We
you
know about
want, seems to be
Americans.
the general motto.
Sorry.
But South Korea has a
guys.
pretty interesting attitude when it comes to what's considered too revealing or not.
Okay.
For instance, a plunging neckline is considered too open among Koreans and is not suitable for wearing in public. A lot of women
Wait, that plunging neckline to me was quite fine, and I didn't consider it revealing because it literally doesn't reveal anything. At the same time, wearing a very short skirt, it's acceptable. Okay.
there will stick to high necklines or wear layers
Okay,
under
that
low-cut
explains
tops
it.
just to err on the side of caution.
Even in K-pop.
However,
you
the
can
attitude
see
toward
that.
miniskirts is drastically different. They're not only acceptable, but are also considered really fashionable.
Short
You'll see
skirts
a
are
lot of
fine.
women wearing
Okay.
very short skirts in South Korea, and everybody's okay with it. Okay. Number
Is that the case, guys? I think we have seen that in K-pop industry that most of the female groups really tend to wear pretty short skirts or shorts. But yeah, when I think about it, I haven't seen ladies showing too much of from their top and having revealing necklines. But yeah, that's really intriguing, being honest. Okay, let's continue.
8. Don't make too much eye contact.
Don't make too much eye contact.
I'm sure you, like a lot of people, have been taught that making eye contact with someone you're speaking to is a sign of politeness.
I've been
It
told
shows
like
that you're listening attentively and are confident
Yeah.
in what you're saying when it's your turn to speak. But in Korea, keeping eye contact is, pardon my pun, looked down upon because it's
Down
considered
upon?
too bold.
Too
It's
bold,
especially
come
important
on.
to avoid
Really?
looking directly into someone's eyes if they're older than you or if they have a higher position, like your boss. And that's because maintaining eye contact is your way of saying that you're on the same level as someone. That'd be an extremely rude move in this case. Number 9.
Okay, guys, number 8 is a bit, it's rather hard to understand for me, especially because really, when I was a kid, I was taught that I should look in the eyes when somebody's talking to me, and this really means that I'm showing respect. And yeah, okay, so they have these rules about the fact that you're not supposed to look in the eyes of the elderly people or people with a higher position in the society, but how about making eye contact when you're speaking with your friends or your family members? Is that a case again? Well, what if you're speaking to your grandma? Aren't you supposed to look her in the eyes? That's a bit strange for me, being honest.
Careful when taking photos in public.
Number 9.
If you're out and about in the streets of Seoul, or anywhere in the country for that matter,
to go to Seoul?
never take photographs with strangers in the frame.
Okay.
It might land you a fine or a night spent in the police station
A
trying
night
to prove that
in the
your
police
intentions
station?
weren't malevolent or
How
crude.
much?
The strictest part of the law is that you can't publish pictures of strangers. That includes on social media. But still, a lot of Koreans are just uncomfortable with people randomly snapping a pic of them without their knowing. And it makes sense, really, as far as privacy is concerned. You can always just be
I could
civilized
agree,
and ask
actually,
permission before taking someone's picture. Number 10.
I really like number 9. I really do. I really do think that privacy is quite important nowadays, and too frequently people are really disregarding your privacy and your right to not be bothered while you're in public and to not be taken photos of. So I do like that. I wish we had these rules in place in my country and in the rest of the world. I think we should learn from Koreans in that sense, for sure. Number 10.
Don't get into arguments, especially with elders.
No arguments.
You might well be
Okay.
a rocket scientist, but in South Korea, you have to listen to your elders, especially if they're rocket scientists too. Nah, just kidding about that last part. Societal
rocket
hierarchy
scientists
based on age is very
in
rigid in
Korea.
this country, and you'll probably be seen as unbelievably rude and disrespectful if you argue with someone who's older than you. Even if they cut in line and you've been waiting there for who knows how long, just let it go if it's an elder. That's especially a good idea if you find yourself face to face with a mad Adzuma,
Agzuma?
translating to something like auntie in
Auntie,
English,
okay.
but not your relation. These older women in their instantly recognizable bright clothes have a particular reputation in Korea. Basically, getting into any argument with an Azuma can be a mistake you might end up regretting for the rest of your life.
Be
If she
careful,
tells you
guys,
up is down,
with the
don't
Azumas.
argue.
Ooh.
Number 11.
Okay. I do realize that we need to be respectful of others, especially the elderly people, and I think that's the case in most countries. But I think there are cases where you can make exceptions. For example, what if you're waiting in line and there's not one elderly person, but for example, 5 elderly people cutting the line and going before you? And you've been waiting there for like a half an hour. Are you still obliged to wait and just do nothing? Because I think time is precious for everybody. While we need to respect the older people, they should also respect us to some point. At least that's my understanding in some circumstances. But yeah, okay. I guess you don't want to be in trouble with Agzumas. With these older ladies, as they said. Okay, number 11. Continue.
Blow your nose in public.
Don't blow your nose in public.
You know it's polite to cover your mouth and nose when you cough or sneeze, but take extra precaution when it comes to blowing your nose in Korea. Obviously, you're not going to shoot any snot rockets on the street. No, please don't do that.
Yeah.
But even just taking a tissue and wiping your nose in public is considered extremely rude and lowbrow, especially at the dinner table. And I'm sure
I
while
could
enjoying some
understand.
spicy Korean
It's
cuisine,
not pleasant.
you'll start wiping a runny nose in no time. Just politely excuse yourself and go wipe or blow your nose in private. Number 12. Toilet talk isn't taboo. Now, this might come as a surprise, given all the
His
other things
face.
on this list, especially that last one about blowing your nose. But talking about your number 1 and number 2 is totally normal in Korea.
Number 1, number 2.
And I'm not just talking about between family, friends, or partners. Even colleagues will go into great detail about their bodily functions. It's absolutely baffling for visitors.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's no taboo whatsoever in discussing how everything is going down there. Is it regular? How's the color?
Seriously?
The consistency?
Seriously?
Everything. In Seoul, they've
Okay.
even built a park dedicated
That's
to all
really
things
surprising, I
toilet.
might say.
Well, I
Park
guess I can
toilet?
understand where they're coming from. It's all just natural biological stuff anyway,
Yeah,
right?
It is natural, but... Okay.
Okay, and enough of that. Are there any cultural taboos and faux pas in your country?
Okay, number 12, that's rather, I would say, a bit shocking. Yeah, to me. That people discuss their biological functions in so much detail. I think it's important, yeah, how your body functions in general, but discussing it with everybody, that's a bit odd for me. Is that real, guys, or is that just a joke? Because I tend not to believe everything I hear or what I see these days, because yeah, we get to read quite a lot of fake information in the media. So yeah, please let me know which ones of these things are true, which ones are not. If there's anything else you'd like me to know about South Korea, I would love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something new today as much as I did. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!